Hi. So we're going to talk about who? We're going to talk about these guys. Ooh, Perissodactyls. These are the odd-toed ungulates. So making you a little bit seasick. Whoa. So the there are. This is a group of organisms that once ruled the planet. Now our fauna is much less perissodactyly. Um, but in the I guess the Eocene, these were the boss. Um, and there were rhinos that were bigger than elephants, so um, a lot bigger than elephants, and and there's a large diversification of all these different kinds of critters, and so that makes for a fun fossil record. Um, but um, then the environment changed over time, and these grasslands, because of climate changes, became dominant. And it turns out that our perissodactyl friends didn't have tummies that were as ideally suited for that. So another group of critters, the even-toed ungulates, kind of got their boost in there. So today we have three groups still wandering around the planet of this once really dominant taxa. And those are the equids, so horses, donkeys, zebras, all those sorts of critters. We have rhinoceroses, and we've got two kinds of rhinoceros still left. But rhinoceroses, rhinos there are a bunch of different kinds. Again, as I mentioned, like the big rhino was a rhino, and it was big. And the third group are tapirs. All right, so South American kind of snoggle-nosed, pig-looking, really cool things. The tapirs, the rhinos, and the horses. So today, in today's class, we're going to be focusing on the horse group and the rhino group. And because I need to get ready to go to Africa, and I want to look a little bit. And so we're going to play with some zebra fun. And we're also going to, I'm going to move this over here and slide this like that. So we're going to play with some zebras, and we're going to take a close look at rhinos. And we're going to figure out how to paint all the stripes on the zebras as well. So that'll be really fun. Let me see if I've got all these little menus that I need to move around. And I am going to change this camera over to this one. Bink. Aha. So this is...
sorry, Jack, to interrupt you. There's a few menus that are still open up on your
screen. You're right. Thank you.
There you go. Yeah, thank you.
There we are. All right, I should have mentioned this right at the start of the meeting, but I made a handout. That has a light zebra skeleton, an even lighter zebra skeleton, and a light rhinoceros skeleton on it. These you can find. Let's see, I will put a link in the chat.
I got you.
You got it? You got it? You got my back there?
Yes.
All right. Then I don't need to put that up because Avea's got it for me. Thank you, Avea. There's a link to print this out, and that will help you. What I want to do is several different layers of messing around with these drawings here. And what I'm going to be doing is putting some muscles on these skeletons, and then looking at how you can simplify all those masses of muscles. So, and then down here on this one, we're going to be drawing some skin around this zebra shape and putting stripes on this zebra. But first we want to kind of understand what is going on in the hood, under the hood. And so when I do this, here is the warning. There is about to come towards you more information than you're going to need to draw this zebra. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to understand a little bit more than we can see and draw. And the reason we're doing this is that that really kind of helps us have a really mechanical structural understanding of what is happening with this critter. And when we do that, our drawings are helped by that. So, but if at some point you're going like, why like all this detail, we're going to be kind of overfilling the cup, then we're going to be pouring out just enough to kind of get us by and simplifying that. But if we don't understand what it is that we're simplifying, then the simplifying crutch can actually hurt our thinking, because then we don't understand what it is that we're simplifying. I hope that made some sense. To do this, I've got a small set of colored pencils, and I'm going to be, with these, putting on, ooh, magenta. That looks pretty. So I've got a kind of a brown one, a blue one, a magenta one. Any others that I need here? Oh, red brown. I like you better than that brown. All right. And I'm going to come down here on this zebra friend, and I am going to lock magnification. First, I'm going to refocus. Get this to focus. There. So, and now I'm going to lock it there. All right. So I'm going to put not all the muscles on this, but a few of the muscles that are on this zebra on this zebra. And we're going to start over here at its little, by the way, if you don't have, if you're watching a recording of this later on, all the handouts which I use for my classes are available at johnmuirlaws.com. Go to my store. There's something called the Worksheet Archive. I think that's what I call it. And they're all free downloads from that inside my store. So you go into the store, but you don't have to buy anything. If you don't want to do that, you can make a quick kind of sketch of this. And for simplifying a skeleton like this, maybe a nice kind of simple version is I'll make a little shape for a head. I'm going to have a spine that comes out like that, give it a little bit of a swoop. There is going to be a rib cage that is going to be down in this area here. And we'll put a shoulder blade on the side of it. All right, so got our little shoulder blade. There then is going to be, not going down, but actually going back like this, is the upper arm bone. That's the humerus. And so we're going to have just a little upper arm bone in there. And from there, your leg comes straight down. So you have your radius and ulna that come down to a little wrist joint down here. Then part of the zebra's hand bones come down here. That's equivalent to this part in you. These bones are all fused together in the equids. And then we have our toe. And as the name Perissodactyl is suggesting, these are all critters with odd numbers of toes. They are all putting their major weight on the third toe. The third toe is the weight-bearing one. And on the horses, all the other ones have been lost. And on the rhinos, you've got 3 down like that. Most of the weight on the center one with 2 little supporting ones. But this is what we have on the horse. And so we have a few little finger bones going down to the hoof. Now on the back side, you have a hip bone. So see how this shoulder blade is kind of up at a tilt here? We're going to get an opposite tilt here with the hip bone so that they're pointing towards each other. And off of that, you have a thigh bone. And that thigh bone is going to come down to a little kneecap. I wish this were a little bit wider, but I didn't draw that way. Back to a heel. And the heel of the horse is off the ground. So there's the little heel bone that sticks up. And so this is then its foot. Just like these bones are fused together, these bones on the instep of the foot are all fused together, and then there's a little hoof. So if you don't have this worksheet, being able to simplify that skeleton, you can still kind of work along with us, and we're going to have a very good time. All right. But maybe you've got this little critter on your screen. So we're gonna go the front leg, then we're gonna go the back leg. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some muscles on this, and then and I'm going to focus on at some future date we'll kind of do an anatomy thing where we'll get into all these more intricate muscles. I'm just going to hit a few critical muscles. Okay? So there's one muscle. In human beings, weightlifters get really proud of their biceps. The triceps on the back of the arm is a much more functional muscle if you're not standing around in a bar trying to impress people with your guns. So this is very functional in running, and it's going to occupy this space back here. The biceps are going to be rather small on this animal, but its triceps are going to be big. So I'm going to just draw a light little line right here along the back part of this shoulder blade, right there. And I am going to draw a little dot right here on the back of the ulna. And then I'm going to connect those with a big, meaty muscle. And I'm going to draw a few little lines this way, the little fibers of this muscle to make it kind of look like a muscle. And I might even put in a few little, there's some tendons here, so I'll put in a little bit of blue. Right. That is the triceps. That's the triceps. And there's actually another head of it that is down in here. So it's a three-headed muscle. And there's another little head of it that attaches on here like that. And it attaches to the same place here. So this also makes another kind of big bump in here. And so you see what we've done is we've made kind of a little groove in there, little groove back here. We've made this big meaty muscle in the front behind this leg. So from where the elbow comes up, this big wad of meat. Now, there is a biceps that is in the front of this, but as big as this triceps is, you're going to be rather unimpressed with the biceps. The biceps actually starts here, and it's going to end down in here. So it's going to go over this. So there's a little tendon that drops down. So I'll do that in blue. A little tendon that drops down, and then it spreads out into this ball of a muscle down in here. It attaches in there. And that gives us our our biceps. So we've taken this upper part of the leg and we have packed it on both sides with big meat. This is big. As we go down the leg, we're going to get smaller. one way that animals can run fast is by taking all the weight of the animal's muscles, and the closer you get that to the core, the more you can move the extremity. So big muscles, small muscles in this next part, and down here it's just everything's going to be operated by tendons and a few tiny little muscles. So Papa bear, mama bear, baby bear, big muscles, medium muscles, small muscles. So I'm going to just put in two medium muscles, one on the front part of this and one on the back part of this. And so we're going to have a little muscle that starts back in here, the top of this joint, and it's going to go to this little wrist bump down there. And this muscle is bigger up top, and then it tapers. It tapers down to here. If you're kind of getting into naming all of these muscles, that's the ulnolaris lateralis. Again, do you need to know that? No. You don't even have to know that this next one is the extensor carpi radialis, and it's in the front. So it's going to go from the bottom part of this sort of long bone up here. And it is going to attach down below this joint. And that's going to give a little bit of thickness to the upper part of the leg here. And then everything else is just down little tendons. So you've got big, medium, small. Now, let's add some beef to the back leg. We are going to, the first one I'm going to do is not the biggest muscle. It makes sense sort of if I did parallel construction of these to do the big ones that are up here. It's going to be the same pattern. Big up here, medium here, small down here. But I actually am going to put in one of these superficial muscles first because some of the other muscles will want to cover it up. And it's going to start right back here on the back side of the humerus. I mean, not the humerus, the femur. And it's going to go to the heel. And this is, if you feel on the back of your legs, your calf muscle, that big muscle on the back, your hamstring muscle, that is going to go from here down to here. And at the back end, it's more of a thin tendon, but it extends to a pretty beefy muscle up in this top part. That is the calf muscle, also called the gastrocnemius muscle. And when this gets smaller, it moves the foot. So all of these muscles, they want to go usually across just one joint, sometimes two. So this one goes across this joint and this joint. But by attaching to bones on either side of joints, when that muscle flexes, it's going to bend that joint. So this is a really important one. And when you go up on your toes, this one flexes. Now, let's put some of the muscles into the top part. Right? Actually, maybe to be more parallel here, I will throw one more into this bottom part because we just did this calf leg. So I'm gonna have one that starts here on the femur, and it is going to go in. It's going to have a little bit of muscle body up in here, and it's actually going to operate part of the toes down here. So rather than having big muscle down here, you're going to go from big up here to a little tendon that comes down here along the side of the leg. There's some little straps that wrap it into place so it doesn't go flopping around. It comes down here and all the way out to the toes. So when this muscle contracts, it pulls the foot up. That's the foot extensor, extensor pediis, also called the extensor digitorum longus. But do you need to know that? No, you don't. But notice, so here's our medium size, just like this, medium size, medium size. Notice here, though, that the back here is a little bit bigger than the front. The back legs are always going to be more buff than the front legs. Now, let's put in some big muscles up here. I'm going to start with the triceps of the leg. The legs have a triceps, and we're going to attach those up in here, and we're going to then hook them on to the front of the kneecap here. So they're going to make a big, meaty bulge right there. There is also a muscle that goes from the back of the hip here, and it's going to spread out in a sheath that attaches across here in the front. So it's going to be spreading out like this.
Oh, hey, Jack, there's a request. Would it be possible that you could maximize your visualizer and maybe lose the part that says Perissodactyl just to make it easier?
Oh, what a cool idea. There isn't just a possibility. Bam, just like that.
Oh, sorry. I hate to, I think you got to lower it just
Ah, there we go. Thank you. Right, so this big muscle here is the biceps femoris, the bicep of the femur. So it's a two-headed muscle, that's why it's called a bicep. And it's going to make the back part of this leg meaty. And there's one other muscle I'm going to stick in here, and that's one that is going to start here on the hip. And this is called the tensor fasciae latae. And it is going to spread out here in a big fan across this muscle, attaching onto the little tendon here by the knee in the front, and then it spreads out across this mass here. So that makes for another big muscle in the front. So let's take a look at what we have. We have a big box in the front. We have then small section and then even smaller. You don't need to memorize the origins and insertions of all these different kinds of muscles. What I usually do is I simplify it for myself. And the way I do that is like this. I'm going to draw a little box. It's going to go from the point of the shoulder out here, like that, to a corner here, out where the end of the humerus is, and coming back over the humerus, and also on the skeleton beneath that there are some pectoral muscles that come down like that. So we have a bottom of that there. I am going to give it a short, flat top here.
Sorry, Jack.
Whoops. Thank you. Keeping me on task. And then we are going to come back here. So it's a little keystone shape. Narrower up here and big across this plane here, going from the elbow to the point of the shoulder here. And on the back side, I'm going to do the same. I am going to go from this point of the hip up here down to this point of the hip here. to the knee to a narrower line across this joint, and then back up there. So we have two keystone shapes, bigger here, smaller here, smaller here. And that's going to quickly summarize a lot of this muscle mass. And then what is happening below that? Below that, the leg comes down thicker, and this leg comes back thicker. So this one comes straight down, this one goes back. The back one then has a corner, it hits that corner, has a smaller part of its leg. This one continues straight down with a smaller part of its leg. And then your little hooves come forward from that. So that's the anatomy simplified under that hood. There's two other muscles that I want to add on to this. One is when you're drawing the heads of these critters, there's the zebras and horses have these really big cheeks. You see this little ridge right here on the side below the, there's a little ridge below the eye. That's a big muscle attachment place for the masseter muscle that chews. It's going to go from there and attach onto the bottom jaw. So it goes from the top jaw to the bottom jaw. And that makes this big round curve below the jaw. It also makes this big ridge on the side of the face of the zebra or the horse. The final muscle I want to put in is one that's going to start here. Let's do that with blue. Start here at the back of the skull, actually more down here, on the mastoid process. And it is going to then swing down to over here on top of the end of the humerus. And so it's going to make this downward diagonal muscle right through here. It's a very thick, beefy muscle, and you'll see that often makes a very distinct groove and line on the side of the neck of the horse or the zebra. So that is kind of a quick introduction to some of the muscles, a simplification of those. And now what I want to do is draw some zebra on top of this. Right? So let's move this over like this. There we go. And so there are our Perissodactyl friends. There's a tapir on the left. All right. Next to it, the rhinoceros and the horse. So those are your existing groups of Perissodactyls today. And we're going to start with thinking about the zebra in general. It's going to look like a horse, but it's going to look like a horse that you did the proportions wrong. So relative to a horse, it's got a big old head and a fairly short, compact body, and short, compact legs. So kind of pony proportions. But it also has this stiff mane that sticks up like Elvis behind its head. And so those features make it look zebra-y. I'm now going to just draw some zebra silhouette over this little critter here. All right, so there's a zebra on the left. And what I'm going to do is I am going to add some of these features to my little friend here. So I've got a zebra forehead that comes out. Now the nose has a bunch of cartilage in it. The nose is going to stick out here in front of where you see these lips going. And then on horses and zebras, there's a little cute little lower lip that hangs down. And so they have their very kind of serious mouth here. We're going to come back on the head, and you're going to sort of see a little hint of that big masseter muscle that is in there. The nostril, think of making a number 6 that is laying on its back here. Kind of a little scoop like that. I made my nostril a little bit big. Okay, very big. The eye you're seeing from the side, and on an herbivore, that means it's looking out to the side. So the eye, instead of being the sort of forward-facing thing like that, you're seeing the side of the eye. And think of the nostril, the eye, and the ear, which is going to come in here, as lining up across the top of the head. So from there, I'm going to draw a little pointed tube here. That's going to be my little zebra ear. From the back of the skull to these spinous processes here on the back, there's a big ligament that comes down here. So we're going to just, on the drawing here, we're just going to curve that down. So these support a big ligament that goes up and helps hold up the head. And on the neck is not going to come in here. It's going to come in just a little bit down here. And it's going to be going to down to the body here. Before I hit the body, I am going to kind of box out a little bit. So I've got some pectoral muscles here, and I also have the biceps down in here. I'm going to make my back of my zebra friend along here. When I get to the hips here, look for this kind of downturn in the rump. So you're going to come along, and then you're going to slope down for the rump. There's a really cool digestive system in here that is not particularly efficient. So when you look at horse poop, it looks very much like the hay that they ate. But the rib cage is here protecting vital organs. There's a lot of stomach and all these sorts of things coming down here. And so the belly's going to hang down. It's going to sag a little bit. And on a pregnant female, this has a lot of sag. So that'll be coming down like really big bump. Now, let's use this information to simplify these legs and what I'm going to do. I am going to, from the back of the heel here, I'm going to show the back of this tricep, the back of the tricep here, to the corner of that elbow. And then on the front, I'm going to do the same. So sometimes there's a little shadow in here. On some really buff critters, you can see that with no body fat, you can see kind of a little groove here in sort of between some of these tricep muscles. And sometimes you can see a little line along here as part of the shoulder blade is popping up. The leg from there comes down medium-sized, a little bit of a slope in here, medium-sized to here, and then it is going to go small to there. On really buff critters, you sometimes do see a little bit of a kind of diagonal muscle coming up like that, not always. Oh, speaking of diagonal muscles, remember that one that goes up in here in the head? You very often will see a little shadow right in here on the edge of that muscle. So this part here is sometimes in shadow. Then the foot comes down, you have your little, your fingers out here. So you go out to the hoof. It's on the back. On the back leg, remember there's that big muscle that is going to go from this point up here to point down here. So on the back, you sometimes see just a little bit of a swoop in here, kind of getting more beefy right there around the knee. Very often, because there are these muscles that come from here in like this, you'll see we're going to have the back part of our leg come down here. And you will very often see a little groove right in here where the some of these muscles that come around the hip have their edge. So there's a little bit of cool I'm buff definition that you'll see right in there. Right in here, you often get a double bump. The knee, and then the edge of this is the tibia fibula here. That gives you another little bump here. So you sometimes see a little double bump in there. And we're going to go thick to thin, and then forward to the hoof. Our tail is going to hang off of that. And there are my proportions here, and my kind of overdrawing. You see, I'm taking this little understanding, and I can simplify it, and then as I'm drawing in my muscles over that, just put in a little bit of a hint of I want to understand these muscles. I want to simplify it with my brain to these shapes, and then as I draw my final drawing, I can suggest some of that muscularity in my drawing. Now, to make this really start to look zebra-y, we need the Elvis pompadour. So up here over the forehead, we're going to pop that up, a little curve here, and its hair sticks up in this big mane that comes down onto its shoulders. There's little withers in there. And that's going to, on a horse, those are kind of more relaxed hairs, but to make it look really zebra-esque, that's all going to stick up. There. And now you're thinking, oh my word, I'm going to lose my mind if I have to put stripes on top of this thing. What do you, like, oh no, and then you get your stripes off, and then the stripe. You ever start, just if you start kind of drawing stripes at one end and you end up, the pattern's going to get really weird. And also, this pattern is made to confuse you. It's made to, as I'm running around, you're going to be looking at me and you're going to be getting dizzy and thinking like, oh no, there's all this sort of running leg stripiness. It's visual, it's intentionally visually confusing so the zebra doesn't get eaten. So I've come up with a system for drawing these patterns, and I think it is a really kind of useful thing. And what it is, I want you to notice 3 lines. 3 lines on the zebra. If you can block in those 3 lines, you can get the rest of the pattern. So take a look at this and see what you think, I think, are the critical 3 lines. I'm saying there are 3 lines here. If you get those, it's going to be so much easier to do. Maybe your 3 lines will be different from mine. You ready? Here's mine. Here's mine. Here they come. Bam. Those 3 lines. There is a downward Y over the shoulder. There is an upward Y in the middle of the body. And there's a little letter C right behind the muzzle. If I can get those, I'm in pretty good shape for drawing in these patterns even from memory. Let's notice that the legs are all horizontal, starting bigger, going smaller, starting bigger, going smaller. You see that really dramatically on the back. Notice that on the back and the rump, we have very big stripes. Very big stripes, small stripes on the legs, small stripes on the tail, medium size on the rest of the body, and those two Ys that are inverted. So here's what I do. I say, all right, my little zebra friend, you've got a Y that comes down across your shoulder, and then it fans out in, goes this direction, and its other branch goes this direction. So sometimes these each little line on the zebra, by the way, there's no two zebras that are alike. This is a generalization about zebras. So you notice on the Y in the middle of the body, it starts off with a double thing up here. Like, do they all do that? No. So sometimes there's a little line that comes down like this, hits this little Y point, and it's going to go to a big stripe over the rump, and then comes down onto the belly. And then what about on the face? Well, there's a little letter C that is up in here. I'm going to give this guy its little line under its eye. And now I'm ready just to put in freehand. I'm not going to look up at the photograph. I imagine that this zebra has now wandered on, but I've got this much information. I've got the general pattern. So what I've got is on the head here, these stripes come down on the side of the head. And on the front of the face, they make stripes up there on the front of the face. In front of the C, they make more little commas that then bleed into this dark muzzle. On the body here, I have stripes that go up the neck. Now, on some of these, I'm going to turn them into Ys. I can either make the top of the Y at the top, all right, or I can have them come up and then fork out. Fork towards the bottom. And then when these lines hit the mane, the dark stripes go up into the mane, giving you zebra pattern in the mane. Oh man, zebras are so cool. We'll make the outer edge of it a little bit darkened. But you see how this is just stuff I kind of generally filled in from this original Y pattern. And what down here, by the time I get to the legs, I want little horizontal, but I'm just now going to make this, I can put some of these together to be unified or not. And then I am going to put little horizontal things into the legs. Some of those fork, some of them don't. And then the same with the rest of the body here. So we're going to follow this here. And by the time I get over here, I'm going to be more vertical. Some of these can fork. And if there's a real zebra in front of you who's cooperating, do what it does. But if it's moving around and it's too hard to see, this is a great... Now, what about here in this little triangle? Oh, these just do this weird thing. We're going to do this, we're going to do this. And now I'm going to come across here with another big curve, and then curve here. And then I want it big across the rump. Right? I'm going to come up here. I'm going to be big across the rump. And then I am going to start to get smaller as I go down the leg. And some of those I can fork out. Some I'll keep straight. I just put stripes on a zebra. Right? Little guys here. Those little guys continue up the back. So if there is a little cooperative zebra out there, you can look at what it's doing. But you can see that you don't have to, if you get this Y, if you get this Y and this C, you're really well on your way to filling out all those stripes on our zebra friend. Isn't that cool? So that's my zebra trick. I like the zebra trick. And so look at this zebra. It's got a different pattern than the other one. All right, but still you see the general, that same general pattern. Here's the Y in the back. This one is actually a broken Y, or maybe there's my Y there. Coming down here and Ying out here. And then here's my C around the front of the face. What do my stripes do? My stripes, sometimes they make a Y that attaches at the bottom. Sometimes they make a Y that attaches towards the top. Sometimes there's a little stripe that doesn't go all the way across. And that makes the white part make a Y. Right? See that in there? Ah, check you out, you little zebra. Every zebra has a different pattern. And I did want to just give a moment to give some special respect to this zebra view. So everybody, let's just sort of draw the back end of a little zebra here. So I've got a center line. I've got my body that sticks out to the sides. I've got little legs that are coming down there. So I'm going to have a central dark stripe that as it goes down turns the stripes. Off the top, there is these big stripes are coming around. And do one side first, and then copy that side over to the other side. Zebra backsides are just really cool. Should you be out in the field and get this view, don't think to yourself, I need to wait till my zebra turns around in order to sketch it. Take advantage of this, this great little bit of zebrosity and enjoy them. And no two zebras are going to have exactly the same pattern, but you can get that same general pattern and you are good to go. Which doesn't leave us very much time for rhinos. But we'd already spent a little bit of time with rhinos. I did want to briefly revisit rhinos, though. Um, if you're kind of new to rhinos, notice that the rhino is going to be basically buff on the same plan. Look at this. I have here in the shoulders, off the shoulder blade all the way down here, I have this big block. And on the hips, across the hip bones, your big rhino tummy hangs down. And your mass of your muscles are up here. So then what you have sticking down are upper legs. Now, on this one, on the zebra, these bones here in the wrist, well, not the wrist here and on the palm of the hand were all fused together, but they're not in the rhinoceros. So you're going to have this very clear angle. It'll be straighter in front, 3 toes, 1, 2, can't see the third. There's 1, 2, there's a third out there. Right? So expect this little bend in the leg, that heel, on the backside. They're not quite as just old. They're a little bit more lean than you get with a hippopotamus. But really, you've got the same basic plan. From the back of the head here to the top, there's a big ligament, and then big muscles that hold this neck on. So from the front of this, you have a big head. And that's where you can stick your horn. You're off the top. People will tend to not put this part in or tend to not make it big enough on a rhino. But you want to kind of make your rhino look rhino-y. That's going to be important. The other thing that's very nice for a rhinoceros is just the swoop of the back and getting this double bump, shoulders and hip bump. And that is going to help you feel very rhinoceros. Before I close, I wanted just to address some critters that are not in a profile. And I've got some other workshops that, that play with this, but we want to think about this in terms of our zebras. We want to think of this in terms of all the critters that we draw. Is what if it is not a straight up side view? What generalizations can I make? And can this same system still help me out? I think it can. So here's what I'm going to do I'm going to show you how I go about thinking about this rhinoceros. I'm going to first, just off the back, there's that double bump. And in the on the side of the body, I have, from going up there, here is that keystone. But I'm now actually going to think of this keystone not as a flat shape, but as a three-dimensional feature. I am going to imagine that this keystone has, go. On the back hips, I am also thinking of this as a three-dimensional shape. And then I'm swinging some tummy between them. My legs are going to come down from out here, and they're going to come slightly in. So that little wrist, you can see this one kind of fanning out here. On the back, my legs come down here, and notice that far leg has more, I see more of an angle in it than I do on this close leg. The reason for that is that if the back legs, here you see these two back legs are bent, and they're also slightly splayed out, right? So that means when I'm looking at this at a 3/4 angle, this close leg lines up and points towards me, and I see it as straighter. That back leg, here's the heel, that back leg, you see more of an angle in it because this front leg is pointing towards you. Huh. It's counterintuitive. You expect to see that same angle in both of the legs, and because you're just going to draw the same little bend there. But the front leg really comes down. I see that as much straighter. And then have this one. Think of your neck attaching in here. I'm going to draw a little oval off there. And I will often kind of make sort of a blockhead shape if I'm drawing something in 3/4 view. That just sort of helps me think of so I've got this mass, my belly mass, and then the hip mass. Another way of, then we need to put our kind of rolls of rhinoceros tissue. As my friend the rhino turns even more, notice that this mass here, and this hip mass are now even more overlapped. So I'm now getting, I've got my front of my rhino here, I've got some rhino tummy sticking out like that.
Oh, Jack, do you think you could?
Oh, yes, thank you. And then the hips are being even more hidden by that. So on this one here, I want to think of, I've got this front section here, and my legs are going to come down from that. I have my big belly that tucks in behind that, and then that's blocking a whole bunch more of these hips. So thinking, I'm visualizing it this way. See how I've got this front part of my rhino, here's this middle part, and then there's the back part of the rhino they're each tucked in behind each other. So as I'm drawing this, I want to kind of think of these different sections as tucking in behind each other. If you're having trouble drawing the legs, say in the front, really look at the shape of that negative space between them.
Oh, hey Jack, sorry again. It might help to zoom out just slightly.
Give it a try. Thank you. All right. So if you're having trouble drawing something like legs, looking at the negative shape here between those legs, very, very helpful. Often if I can get that negative shape in the front, it then places my legs for me. This leg coming down here, another leg coming down. Straight, notice those legs are not coming down like table legs. They're coming in at an angle towards the center of gravity of this. And then what we have is that same kind of stance where the back leg, the one that is on the outside, you're seeing it as straighter, and the one that is tucked back on the far side, you can see that turn in it. So that back leg, you're seeing it kind of looking all hero stance out there towards you. The one behind that, you see in side view. My head circle is going to be even in front of that. I'm going to do the same thing of playing with these little circles here. But if I were to be drawing in this head, I would do the same thing of kind of turn it into first kind of a cubist block form. Say that I have the front of my muzzle here. And then that's going to go up to corners out here. And that. So I turn this into a little block. I can then put my nostrils in that. I would get totally lost trying to place features on that head if I didn't have some form of a kind of blocking scaffolding for me. So that's just a little bit about taking these beasties, rotating them around. We've looked at a little bit of anatomy. We put stripes on our zebra. Again, we had these first sort of telltale marks. And I guess these are the telltale marks. And that really helped me spread the rest of the stripes across my little zebra friend. So I hope that that was useful in visualizing these things and kind of getting some of our anatomy. And these are our Perissodactyls, where we're on one toe, the middle third finger. On the rhinos, there's two other ones. On the horse, it's just that one. And then we will, in a subsequent class in the new year, we're going to be looking at the artiodactyls, which are ones that have two toes on the ground. And they have, this includes all of the ruminants, the cows and antelope and all sorts of other cool beasties. And you'll see that there's a much greater diversity of artiodactyls. But here we get, these are our Perissodactyls, and there are We're really familiar with horses. Kate, looking at you. Um, and and so that group is really significant. Should you be lucky enough to find either a rhinoceros or the tapir, then this you also have a little bit of an understanding of what's going on under the hood in those cases. So let's first address any questions that are directly directly connected to what we've been talking about here in this workshop. Oh, Marley says he's in tapir land. Oh, hey, maybe can we first like jump to Marley? If you are here, we would love to hear from our friend Marley Pfeiffer. It's okay to put you on the screen with me. Wait, hold on. You can now unmute.
I'm sort of sick, so my voice isn't great.
Oh,
But
okay.
I sketch tape. I sketch tapirs. That's all. That's just another Perissodactyl. So just yeah.
That's great. Well, we hope you feel better soon. Sorry to hear that you are under the weather. Is it the vid?
I think it's either that or the other respiratory thing that's going around. I'm a lot better actually today, but basically for the last 4 days I've been pretty bad.
Oh, dear friend, I'm so sorry to hear you've been under the weather. I wish you a speedy recovery, and I hope that that you're soon out wrangling tapirs again.
Thanks. I can't wait to hear what some other people have to share and questions to ask. I'm glad I can be here right now.
It's really, really good to see you. We miss you out here, but we love all the adventures you're having with your journal. Thank you for being such an ambassador of nature journaling throughout the world. Great to see you. Marley Pfeiffer, get better. Let's see if anybody has any comments, questions about the things we've been directly exploring here. If so, you can raise your hand and wave at me, or use the raise hand function, or hold your journal up to the screen and I'll see one of those cues. And not seeing that. Let's join Susan. I'm going to add you into the spotlight here, and now you can unmute. Susan, it is great to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah. I really just had a question that maybe will be addressed next month when you look at even-toed ungulates. But I was just wondering. I'm always very fascinated by evolution and taxonomy and sort of how what makes these things similar, because a lot of times obviously we know very different looking creatures are actually very closely related. I mean, elephants and hyraxes.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, and of course the secret even-toed ungulates whose even number of toes is 0
are even-toed
whales. Which are in that which are
yeah,
I believe are in fact in the family. So what I was wondering is really, it's just like, as we're looking at these structural similarities in the skeleton and everything between the rhinos and the zebras and the horses and things, I'm curious if there are actually like differences in structure between the even-toed ungulates, which have a very similar lifestyle but have evolved apparently quite separately than the odd-toed ungulates. And so just are their bones put together differently in some way? I don't know.
Yeah.
So many of those things are very consistent across.
Yeah. Once we get below the wrist, there are big differences. Above that, there are some prominences on bones that are different between the two groups, but they're nothing that make really big, significant things that I notice as an artist. the big differences that I see, like if you look at like one of the artiodactyls, which we'll be doing in the future, it's the hippopotamus. And you look at, say, the hippopotamus skeleton and the rhinoceros skeleton, and you see lots of really interesting similarities. And what's going on there is we're adapted for this really big body weight. So with the ground portal posture.
Yeah, if you're gonna carry that much weight, you just have to have the same kind of structure. Yeah, interesting.
That's right.
I was looking at on Wikipedia. I was looking at these sort of precursors to the horse and these sort of like very ancient members of the family that the Eohippus and Mesohippus and all these.
Oh, and can I tell you one of the greatest crimes?
Horses, they're little cute little critters.
Yeah, Eohippus dawn horse, greatest name ever. Greatest name ever. Eohippus, love that. They've changed Eohippus's name. That's just sick and wrong. I know. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I forget what they've turned it to. It's something that's just totally unremarkable and not rememberable. But poor little Eohippus got a name change to something that's not as cool. I mean, Eohippus dawn horse, that was the best. That was the best. I see you're crestfallen. Oh, or have we lost your signal? I think either you're really good at holding still, or we've lost your signal there, Susan. Sorry about that. But yeah, and also just sort of one thing about that kind of progression of hoarseness is that a long time, not a long time ago, but when I was first sort of, a kid diving through paleontology books, that was the progression of horses was presented as this one changed into this one, changed into this one, changed into this one. We cannot really make that that clear pattern. A better way to think about it is sort of a many branching bush, and some of these may have led to others and be on the same, major. Some may be a another side branch off one that is earlier. Others may be share an ancestor that, and so because of sort of shared ancestry, we're seeing these patterns, but we don't necessarily want to think of it as all those horses were in a direct line and so some of those may be horse cousins of those, but that's perhaps a whole discussion for another day. And hopefully we can get Susan back. So is there? Susan is back. Yes. Let's bring the Susan. I'm going to add you into my spotlight. There you are. We've got.
Hi. Sorry, my computer decided to just
rascally thing.
Yeah. I think it was so excited by the amazingness of the dawn horse that it just couldn't do anything else. So I missed whatever it was you said, but I'm sure it was fascinating, and I'm sure that I will see the recording and be wonderful.
Well, I was just talking a little bit about how when we see that line of horses, the thing that jumps to our head and the way we originally thought what was going on was that exactly, that's sort of this progressive line of ones all in the same lineage, as opposed to thinking of as these may be sort of sprouts on different branches of a bush that that shared a common ancestor, but this one didn't necessarily lead to this one, to this one, to this one. But we can see a lot of that diversification, and we also sort of see things as you get ones that are older or younger in time, sort of coming more on this horse pattern, which is really, really neat. It's neat to see what happens with those little Eohippie toes.
Well, it's like taking a picture of a person from 1850 and taking a picture of a person from 1890 and from 1920 and from 1950 and from 1980 and now, and putting them all in a line. And sure, you'd see this progression of like fashions changing and things, but those people are not necessarily the ancestors of the next one in the line. They're just people who happen to live at that time, you know, who, yeah. So, yeah, very, very cool. Sorry, we didn't make you reiterate that.
No. It's fun, and it's useful because it is a very common misconception about sort of how we're the idea of, you know, is this my ancestor, is a very hard question to answer, but it's different from saying these shared a recent common ancestor.
Mm-hmm.
and
that's, and even potentially extrapolating from that the some common ancestor may have been similar to this thing.
Yeah. That's right. That's possible.
I think
you know, in a few cases, you know, if you're really, really lucky with, you know, fossil formation, you will get things that are on the same branch. Otherwise, you've got things that are on different branches where this one didn't end up leading to this, but they shared a common ancestor. And this one we're seeing it here in time this far after it left that common ancestor. And we're finding this one here. Then that's right. You're saying like that one may have been like, that's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, this is how you lead to this sort of this misconception of, if humans evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? And it's like, no, monkeys and humans have a common ancestor that's more recent than the common ancestor between humans and horses.
Yes.
But monkeys are
and much more recent than the link between humans, and they are
just as evolved as humans are. They are, because they've had as much time to evolve as we have had. So, you know, yeah.
Right. Yeah, so that's a very useful distinction, and one that kind of, when you wrap your head around that, it does help kind of clear up a lot of some popular misconceptions.
And taxonomy is fun.
Yes, that's right. And do you have any other thoughts about our Perissodactyl friends?
Well, not particularly at the moment, but just was going to note, just there was an interesting discussion going on, some questions in the chat relating to the stripes on the zebra, and I was wondering, you know, and it seems to me now that you think about that you would have to get those kind of Y shapes at approximately those areas in the zebra striping in order to have the stripes wrapping around the body and the leg and the front leg and all these different parts. So you'd have to have these places where those stripes split. And I've been wondering, well, is the split Y shape always a black stripe or not? And the very next zebra that you showed had some split places where it was white stripes. And so it was just making me think about, you know, sort of how those stripes actually form in the zebra as it's developing, and the cells that produce that. It's very, very fascinating to see how those different kinds of patterns develop. And I wonder if different kinds of animals that have stripes would have different characteristics to those stripes in that respect, in terms of like where do they split and what color as what, you know, as what, and so on and so forth. It's very interesting questions.
Nice.
Need to go to one of these days.
That's a fun potential rabbit hole there. And then the functionality of these stripes. There's also some theorizing about the functions of some of these stripes may be something to do with tsetse flies as opposed to confusing lions, or something else.
Something else, always, or something else.
That's right. We have that little part of our sort of our mental mind map of, or something else I haven't thought of yet. So in case I don't get to see you before the year rounds out, again, I want to wish you a really, really wonderful year, and thank you for being part of this community so actively.
Thank you. Well, and since I happen to be speaking to you, I did want to say I have not forgotten about the discussion about going down rabbit holes, and I do owe you emails. So I apologize for dropping the ball on that, but I will be emailing you and suggest putting that on the calendar.
Great. I would love to do that.
Yes.
Probably best times are once I return from Africa, because the workshops are filled between then and now. And the after that, so folks who don't know, Susan and I and Avea, we're going to put together something on spelunking in rabbit holes. So that's why, Susan, I sent you that headlamp. It's for spelunking. And so this day, everybody's going to have to wear their headlamps.
Mm-hmm. We're going in deep.
We're going to go there. You bet we are. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
It's really good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Let's join the Perissodactyl's best friend, Kate Chandler, Perissodactyl rescuer and wrangler. You can now unmute.
Okay, you knew I had to chime in for this with all things equid. I was just kind of fascinated to look at popping open the hood on our equine friends and really looking at all the things that make them work. One of the things that really stood out to me is looking at the morphology between zebras, you know, wild type horses. So there's only one species or one truly wild horse, and that's Przewalski's horse that lives in Mongolia. And I think into Ukraine and some other areas in like the steppes of Russia, I believe. But their like body morphology is very different from any sort of domestic horse. So even like the wild Mustangs that we have in the United States, they're actually a domestic horse that are just feral.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they're totally different. And looking at the zebras and even donkeys and stuff, and just seeing how.
Oops, we have lost your signal. Calling Equid Wrangler. Calling Equid Wrangler. Do you read? We've currently lost Kate's signal.
Genetically isolated breeds.
Oh, wait, hold on. We lost you for about 15 seconds there. So.
Okay, so I was gonna say, there's two breeds of horses that have been like genetically isolated, which is the Mongolian horse and the Icelandic horse, and they maintain a lot of those like really sort of primitive body types where they've got the big heads, and they actually have some really interesting things with how they move. That's different from horses that you see in the rest of the world, because like if you look at any horse that's come out of domestication in Europe, you see this meat of like the steppes horses versus horses that came from the Middle East, which is like basically you have the Barb and the Arabian, which are like the two African and Middle Eastern horses that formed like the more high energy horses that were like the really desired war horses and racing horses throughout most of like modern history. And they're still domestic horses, still the same species, but like Arabian horses, they have one less rib and one less vertebrae than other horses, and they've got like a wholly different system for like storing and burning fat, and like there's so much diversity in how horses work under the trunk or under the hood, based on what they need to do well, and it's fascinating to see all those different pieces kind of fit together.
That's nuts.
Right?
Yeah, I had,
and that's from 6,000 years of like being with people and needing to figure out like what do we need from this companion.
All right, and we've also like done so many things to dogs, but but because the external morphology of dogs is a little bit more easily seen, and the differences in the external morphology of the horses, to somebody like you who spends a ton of time around a horse, you can look at like, that's a Mustang, that's an Arabian, that's a Lipizzaner. To me, they kind of like, that's a big horse, right?
Yeah.
But it would be really fun to actually geek out with you a little bit about what you see in the proportions of these different kinds of horses, and then
Yeah, I think it'd be a really fun kind of thing to dig into because, like, I mean, just looking at the zebra and stuff, they are designed to. So, like, if I'm looking at horses, everyone probably knows about the quarter horse. They're sort of your typical ranch cattle horse. They're sort of really big butt. Their back slopes a little bit downhill. And to me, when I look at that, I see that big butt and that sloping downhill means that they can go for a really powerful sprint and they're able to stop and turn really fast. However, they're going to wear out really fast because they're carrying a lot of that extra muscle. They're carrying a lot of extra weight. Whereas if I were a horse that's going to go all day, something like the Arabian, they have, short little legs. They have a short twitch muscle movement system. They process fat differently. And I used to ride this Arabian horse that someone said you would have to swim that horse out to Orcas Island and back to wear him out. And if anyone knows, that's a very long swim from where I live. And it's just crazy to look at like how these different body types really affect what you're able to do. And I just think it's so cool.
That is really cool. That's really cool. That's really elegant.
Yeah. And you can tie it back to human history too, from like social movements and stuff and what people needed. So yeah.
What, through our selective breeding, what have we created for specific needs? I'll bet there's other people who have done a really deep dive down this rabbit hole. Are you familiar with any books where people are kind of, hardcore geeking out on this?
Not off the top of my head. Most like books that include horse breeds. I used to have a really cool one. I don't know where it is now. It went through all the different breeds of horses, and then it talked about like their historical origins. And most horse books that have a lot of info. Yeah. But it's kind of cool to think about like the genetic part of it, and then the functional part, and then the historical aspect. So, yeah.
If you remember the name of that book, let me know.
Will do. I would love to find that one again too.
Okay. If you can find that, we'll send you a copy of the book. So if you can track it down, we'll get you a copy for you to do then a deep dive, and then it'd be fun in a future workshop just to specifically go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, that'd be really fun. I'd love to do that.
I'm down.
See if I can bring Timber and rope him into it.
That's right. That's right. By the way, thank you so much for bringing them into the horse sketching class.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
That was great. Are there any? Holly's making some comments about fox domestication, which is relevant here. Holly,
and Susan said something about the behavior of Przewalski's horse and if they'd accept riders. I actually have answers for that.
Oh, tell us.
Same thing's been done with Przewalski's horse and the zebra, where people have tried to domesticate and ride them. And the thing is, those are still genetically wild animals. They are not bred to accept human contact. So you can take feral horses and relatively easily domesticate them because they're genetically predisposed to accept human contact, which is such a strange thing to think about, that something can just be genetically predisposed to go, oh yeah, humans are fine, even if it's lived wild. Like Timber was born in the wild, and while he's still more wary of his surroundings than most domestic horses, he's still perfectly capable of all sorts of training and socialization with humans, which is totally bizarre because you could take Przewalski's horse and you may be able to train them to the same extent that you would, a giraffe or something for basic handling in a zoo, but they're not really, and zebras as well. Some people can ride zebras, but you're never going to get the same like reliable results that you would with horses, even feral ones. So the genetic roots of domestication are crazy.
Yeah. Maybe Holly, is it okay to bring you in on this conversation? Because with the foxes, I don't know if this is the same study you're thinking of. There's this.
With the, let's see. Hi there. What's
Hello.
Hold on a second.
wait, okay. Oh, am I on now?
Yes, you're
Yes, you are.
you're live
Yeah,
with this discussion
yeah.
of domestication. So, tell us a little bit about the foxes.
I read this article a long time ago, so I'm going to just try to give you just a little nugget. Is that a group of women scientists in Russia, I think in Siberia even, where they had these foxes and they wanted to see if they could domesticate them. So they kept, they would breed them every 2 years to see what the next group would do. And as they bred the foxes, and were around people, okay, they became not only did they become in behavior more dog-like, their entire appearance started to change and look more like dogs.
They got those little floppy ears, right?
Their ears shape changed.
Yeah.
It was, to see, I thought that was a fascinating study. And unlike wolves, I understand, I could be wrong. Unlike wolves, they were able to take cues from people like dogs do. Wolves do not take cues from humans. I can point to something and my dog knows that there's 2 cups there, but that's the one that's going to have the food because he's watching me all the time, right?
Yeah.
But a wolf would be like, what? They will not do that. So
they're looking out for other things.
But and I think that's something that for the longest time we didn't actually. I think that's only in the last decade that people have realized that dogs do that and wolves don't. But I think the fox connection is like incredibly interesting because it feels like the research feels like they're much more like our dogs than wolves are, and the wolves are where our dogs come from, which is so interesting, right? So that's all I know. And I read the article a million years ago. It was in the National Geographic, maybe 15.
I read that.
Did you?
That might have been 10 years ago.
Wasn't that cool?
Yeah.
That was
so
cool.
they're selecting they're trying to get foxes that, my recollection is foxes that will be easier to handle and just mellow because in these sort of fox farms and things, they're wild. And when they were going for that one characteristic, like what are the chillest foxes, when you selected for that mellowness, it turned them into these just kind of cute looking things so that the genes were actually hooked onto all sorts of other characters. So sometimes like you tweak this gene, it's going to affect a constellation of traits.
Yeah.
And
it's like they were fully capable of taking in the new expectation and wrapping their whole system around that. I don't understand that,
this is cool.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it odd that among domesticated species, you see basically the same thing happen over and over again, where you get those patterned coats, the piebald coloration, that's not something you usually see in the wild anywhere. And then you have all these traits that enable these animals to essentially communicate with us, which is crazy. You even see that with pigeons, like the rock doves. Ray Bonto, I'm sure you've seen some piebald pigeons,
Really?
that have the odd coloration, and that's a sign of domestication, which is crazy. And that's all comes from animals living in proximity to humans, changing genetically to better cohabitate with us.
They're wanting the connection because they either need it. Or what drives the need? What drives that's just fascinating,
Yeah.
Well, I think for doing a deep dive on what the impact of that was on horses with Kate would be really, really interesting.
Oh yeah, I'll put that together. I've been a little busy, so I haven't been as involved in this community as I'd like to be, but I'd really love to put that together and do some sort of class on that. I think it'd be so much fun.
Game on, absolutely. And so also what we're seeing here is just that, when we approach this whole area of let's draw zebras with the curiosity of a nature journal, these sorts of questions take on such greater prominence that they we want to just sort of being curious about this sort of stuff is, I think that part of what we see here when we start talking about these things come up, and then we want to go explore that, and then that pulls us into another adventure. This is just sort of a microcosm of the process of journaling, where we actively are looking for the things that we don't know and the things that we want to play with and are curious about. So, Kate, in case I don't see you for the before the end of the year, I want to wish you also just sort of a thank you so much for being part of this community and for joining us on this growing adventure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a positive part of my life. It's inspired so much growth, and I'm really grateful for everything that everyone here has done for me. And yeah, I really could not imagine last year without you guys. So excited for another one.
We don't know what's going to happen yet, but this coming year,
yeah,
it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
I assume so. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Is there anybody else that had something to share, comments, thoughts, or ideas that you wanted to have? Perhaps, Avea, should we close out here? Oh, Ray Bonto. Ray Bonto. Hey there. Going to add you into the spotlight. Hey there, Arpan. Good to see you as well. And you can now unmute. Oops. Let me try again. Now you can unmute.
Yes.
There we go.
Hello.
Back in the UK, Jack.
Oh,
Yes.
you're back where?
Back in the UK.
Okay. Well, welcome home. Welcome home. Was it what was one of the more interesting observations or aspects of your recent trip to India?
Well, many. We haven't finished drawing them.
I showed you mine.
Yeah.
You show yours first,
Okay.
since that's the topic.
So, continuing from some of the birds that Rubonto had shown last time. We missed last day's class because we were traveling back. So sorry about that.
The flight was next day in the morning.
So we didn't.
Those long plane flights are really hard.
Yeah, it's about 15 hours. Yeah.
13.
Yeah, 13 hours. Yeah.
Excellent.
So this is a common minor, we call this. And
Oh, fun.
usually brown. They are very brown birds, but they are so common. You can just see them on the streets, on the roads, everywhere. And the very peculiar thing about them is their eyes. It's yellow. I'll make something in color later on. So these are some of the things I've drawn. The other thing that really struck out was something called a white-breasted water hen. So,
oh, what an interesting looking critter.
yeah, this is we went to a park nearby where we lived, and then we saw this. We might have seen it beforehand, but we never observed it or noticed it properly. Yeah,
Is this one of those things with giant feet?
yeah, but it's not a very big bird. It's like this big, maybe.
Mhm.
So it's not big, but yeah, its feet is quite big compared to its body. It walks exactly like a hen, and that's what we observed. Why does this bird walk like a hen? And then we realized it's called a white-breasted water hen because it goes into water. And it's extremely shy. We could not get very close to it. It's very aware. yeah, we could not get a close enough look at it. But it was very colorful and it was quite noticeable. You see this tuft at the back, that's kind of red in color. And
Oh.
this is black and this is white. And it's a very, very beautiful bird.
And when it turns towards you, it's very slender and big on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's this really cool adaptation. You see that also in rails, where if they're going through the rushes and things, they want to be compressed side to side. But then when you look at them on the side of the body, they're much broader. But then they turn towards you, and it just looks like, oh no, that can't be that same bird from that different angle. I really like those different angles that you have on that. And also, I notice on your sketches there, you have this little pose of that thing kind of down and running.
Yes.
And just wanted to point out to folks that, so the bird is not holding that pose for very long. And so you notice that the sketch is not as worked out as the other ones where the bird is kind of up and posing. But if you can get just a few little quick lines of one of these postures, then you really have recorded something useful and valuable. And don't think, folks, that you need to fill out all the details in every drawing. You can have different ones at different levels of sort of levels of resolution. These are really cool notes.
And this is the more common position you'll find this bird in, because it's always looking for something. It's quite busy, the bird.
Mm-hmm.
Hardly see it standing like this.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah. And this is a pond heron, a very wise-looking bird. It just stays still. It allowed us to be quite close to it. We're lucky to see that quite in front, about how much? 4 or 5 feet away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was close enough. And it was just stood still forever. And it's got very beautiful patches, marks around the eyes, all those markings straight down the eyes. It's very beautiful. And very noticeable in flight, because you see a very, which I did not notice before. This is the first time that I noticed. These birds, when they fly, they form a shape at the back. And you can easily understand that's a pond heron. Oh,
that's neat. So but when you get enough time to with that beastie, you can sort of pick out those traits. You get to see it fly. You get to see it hunt. That's cool.
And that's all I've drawn. More to draw.
Oh, those are some good adventures. What about your observations, Ray Bonto?
He hasn't started yet.
No, I did just the class.
Oh, great. Oh,
I drew it.
oh, yeah, well, good for you. That's you got also really even worked out the skeleton. I like the way you're kind of noticing the heights of the different joints and things like that. Oh, yes, there it is, with watercolor even. So fun.
Yeah, I didn't have a pencil.
So you didn't have a pencil, you just dove right in with the watercolor. You're really understanding how to use that medium.
Thanks.
Oh, great. Oh, that little 3/4 vanishing zebra. I like the way you treated that shape. That's a challenging thing to do.
Yeah.
And I like the way you've resolved that shape. Oh, Ray Bonto, would you please send me your in an email your current mailing address? I've got something that's been sitting here on my table for a while that I wanted to send you ever since I got back from from Kenya. And when you have a chance, would you shoot me your mailing address?
Yeah, I'll send you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Well, it is great to see you both. And in case I don't see you folks before the end of the year, rhinoceros foreshortening. Great, 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 great. I like how you're visualizing those shapes. In case I don't see you before the new year, I hope that the rest of this year resolves itself really wonderfully for you. And I also wanted to thank you for being such an active, regular part of this community. Your work's really inspiring for lots of us. What we've seen you do with your pencil miles and your curiosity is really, really strong.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to see you both.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye, my friend. Now I would like to bring on, hold on a second. I would like to bring on the mad botanist. Hey there, everybody. So we have, there we go. This has been a really amazing year for us. We've gotten to know you folks in all sorts of ways, and this community that we have of curious nature journalers, it is so much fun. Our brains are sort of like the most sort of untapped organ of just sort of joy and delight that we have, and we've kind of figured out new ways to kind of take our brains out to play. Let's do a little slow turn here for folks so people can get the full effect here.
Don't spin.
Oh. So Avea just sent me my little brain hat. Do you want to put the
Sure. I'll put the link in the chat.
Susan says it's nice that we have such open minds. So we're going to put the link if you want to make your own brain hat into and go sporting that about town. I think I'm going to be going grocery shopping a little bit later today, and I think I'm going to wear my brain. It's really something that I'm just delighted about. This kind of growing community is sort of how people are just looking at sort of more ways to engage our electric meat with this crazy, wonderful planet around us. Avea, I wanted to thank you for what you have done this year to really help nurture and steward this community. Your calm, inclusive, joyful presence really it sets such a tone that says that it's okay to kind of come out here and play. Thank you so much for your support of this community, and also I just wanted to thank you as the year wraps up. I really wanted to thank you for what you have done to help support me and our mission now with Wild Wonder growing. I'm really grateful to you, and I also am so thankful that one of the sort of strange things that kind of came out of, I guess this sort of started with COVID, right? Where we all went online and we got to know each other in different ways. My friendship with you is one of the things that I really treasure that came from this process. And I just wanted to let you know how grateful I am to you and thankful for your friendship, support, and who knows what we're going to be getting into next, but it's going to be good.
I would like to also thank you as well. As you already as you guys already know, I feel like I owe this community my life in a big way. I was not in a great place 5 years ago in 2018, 2017. And this community, and especially you, Jack, with your kindness, kind of gave me the will to get out of that and to live a better life. And so I owe this community everything for helping me find my spirit again. And I'm very honored to be able to help out and to be here with all of you. And you all have never stopped being kind. So I'm so grateful to all of you. And I feel that, like, for me, I think that the greatest thing that came out of COVID was my friendship with you, Jack. So I feel the same way as you. I'm so grateful to you. And I know that there are people who you've met here and people who you haven't met who even just see your videos on YouTube with warmth. And I've seen so many comments of people saying how much you've brought them light during COVID, or how you've given them permission to play, or how your sense of humor lights them up. And just thank you for being such a light in the world and to each of us. I'm grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you and this community. Thank you so much, Avea. You are fiercely strong and good and kind, and we're honored to be here with you. As before we wrap here, we wanted to give other people in our community an opportunity to, if you wanted to share any thoughts, comments, or ideas with the rest of the community before we ring out the year of our of these workshops. If somebody had other thoughts that they wanted to share, we wanted to give you the opportunity to do that at this time. And yes,
I found your Dawn horse.
Oh, oh, little one. Yeah.
This is from Animals of a Bygone Era, an illustrated compendium. And it's got all of the love for the ungulates in here. So yeah, I just wanted you to know I found your Dawn horse.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, dear friends, we appreciate you being with us. As we kind of bring out this year, we want to encourage you to bring those journals with you in places that you otherwise might not, and see what happens. Stay curious, and just to be kind to yourself and to the world around you. In your journal, let's not kind of get on our case about that could have looked better and all those other sorts of things. Just be kind to yourself and move on to the next adventure, the next adventure, and the next adventure. Realize that we're all kind of getting better. The more we practice this, the better we're getting at any of this. We're all making mistakes, some big, some small, and that's okay. And what our goal is to sort of incrementally, slowly, sort of bring ourselves into a place of greater attention, and we're developing these skills, and we're doing it together. Be kind, and thank you. Again, Avea, so much fun.
We got this.
Bye, everybody.
Y'all take good care.
Marley, get better.
Yes.
I don't know what the equivalent of orange juice over there is, but lots of rest. And you're fortunate. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye. Yeah. We tip our brains to you.
Yes, we tip our brains to you.